All right, get myself up out of the way here. This is a demonstration talking about getting into 3ds Max for two reasons. One is when you're connected to my lab, you can run the software, and it's a new product for you. So we're going to touch base on how to learn a new tool. And then the application of using this tool is something that we call in the meadow, we can build a snowman. Something I've run every year. There's some great examples, and I have an intro video, but I'm just going to talk about 3ds Max in a moment. If you click on the start button, in my lab that is, and it can be confusing because when you're remoted in, you might see your own start button and the start button in the lab. So it's a window within a window when you're working on a remote connection. So on this machine, the one you've remoted into, you'll notice if you touch 3 that it brings up 3ds Max in a different language, Japanese. But if you look for 3ds Max, you'll see it's Japanese, German, French, and English. Quick reminder, please start the English version. Now, through the magic of television, if I had started 3ds Max, the first thing that would have happened is it might have come up and said a couple of boxes that you can only click OK on. Can we use your data? Can you agree to the terms? And then it jumps into here. Now, when you are in 3ds Max the first time, it's going to ask you to go classic or design. In this example, go classic, please. The classic is the one that we're going to use for this activity. What's happening in the background is called a splash or an intro screen. And this welcome screen can be turned off, but I leave it on because of where I'm at with teaching students. And the little turquoise dot that traverses from screen to screen will eventually end up, and that last turquoise spot will end up in something called the next steps. And this is something I mentioned in an earlier presentation on how to actually learn. I want you to use these. Now, the 1-minute startup videos are a misnomer. It's not something you can actually learn in a minute. It will take 1 minute. So if you started that in the lab, you'd see that there's a variety of 1-minute movies that will help you in getting started. I want you to play them at your own pace, replay them, and learn the basics of working with 3ds Max. You're being resourceful by doing this. I'm going to start out with the essentials here. And as I do so, you're going to see that it's actually running it in YouTube. So what I'm going to do for those of you who are not connected in, and there's at least 2 of you, is I'm going to actually copy and paste these in.
Hello and welcome to 3ds Max.
So that those of you who can't connect, this is going to give you a direct YouTube link to actually run this video. And remember, when you're running these videos, change your playback speed as you need. If it's something you already know, I'm fine with you running it at a speed playback of 2. But if they covered something and you missed it, you can always change your playback speed to something like 0.75 or even normal, whatever works for you, and then move the scrub bar, that little dot, back and forth. I strongly suggest that you use captions if they're available, because seeing the words is another way of learning the information. I don't know if captioning is available on all of these, but when it is available, it's a good option. Now, you'll notice this is from a YouTube channel that's provided by the Autodesk 3ds Max Learning channel. If you're logged into my lab, I would go ahead, because you're logged on with my credentials, and subscribe to this so that you get alerts if they come up with something new. You should use the app, correct. Yep. And make sure you're using single sign-on either way when you go to log in. Now, if you jumped into 3ds Max Learning channel, you got to remember that this is for everybody from like you first time seeing it all the way through somebody who's done things in the past, and now there's maybe a new or better way to do it. Some of them are more advanced is what I'm trying to get you to understand. So this is getting started with 3ds Max 2018. There's a playlist. I'm going to go ahead and grab this playlist, and I'm going to copy and paste this. It is the 1-minute tours. So This would be a great link for you to use. If you cannot connect to my lab, this is for you. It's a playlist. While we're talking about, I'm gonna drop it into this as well. Let me just pause this for a minute. All right, so I just put up that playlist for as a comment on today's activity. Now, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be creating. So, Chris, for anyone that does not have a green circle is fine with me. All right. So I will see you show up on one of them. That's great news that you got that far. That's great. Resume recording. All right. So here we are. We're going to do file new scene or new all. So here we are. We've got a brand new scene. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the create panel, which is the plus. And then there's a number of things you can create. For now, we're going to stick with the basic geometry shapes. I'm going to click on sphere. And the first thing I'm going to do is in this perspective viewport, I'm going to click near the middle, which sets my origin. And as I hold the mouse button down, I can drag out and give it a size. When I let go of the mouse, I've now created a sphere. And before I forget what this is going to be, I'm going to come up here where the name is, and I'm going to click a second time, and I'm going to rename this SP for SnowPerson _ base. So that later I can remember what this object is by name. Some of the properties that are exposed when you select something, and this idea of properties is the same in a number of other tools we're going to use, especially the Unreal Engine. So this is a good stepping stone in developing our process and understanding for when we get into Unreal. One of those exposures is the name as well as the color. By clicking on the color swatch, I can then select which color I want. Now, generally speaking, your SnowPerson is going to be a white color. So I'm going to start with a white color. Later, we'll talk about materials and how we can make it look not just like it's colored, but to show it the attributes of snow, roughness, iciness, shininess. All of those things can be done through the power of materials. Now, this piece of geometry has been entered into our scene. I want to next move on to a very interesting selection of tools that are highlighted at the top here that are move, rotate, and scale. These are also available in Mudbox that we've played with, and they're definitely something you're going to use in 3ds Max, and they're also something you're definitely going to use in Unreal Engine. Now, those of you that go into Unreal Engine, Gavin, I'm talking to you in particular, are probably used to using the space bar to change between the scale, rotate, and lock. And you and I that have been playing in the Unreal Engine are going to be very frustrated when we forget that the spacebar doesn't do that. In fact, what it does is it locks and unlocks your selection. So 3ds Max has got a big difference. Correct, 3ds Max English. So to show you that this object can be manipulated, I'm going to touch on W. And now actually I'm going to maximize this viewport. So I'm pretty much going to work in one viewport. In the lower right-hand corner, there's a pop-up button that came up that says Maximize Viewport Toggle. When I click on that, you'll notice the scene becomes, that one corner takes over the whole scene. I've touched W arm in the Move tool, and you'll notice I've got 3 different colors here. X, Y, and Z are labeled, and I can drag on one of these colors if I want to move it around. And I can also drag on more than one to move it off at an angle. So you can move this through 3D space using just one axis or multiple. And getting used to moving something around in 3D space is part of what we're playing with when we build our SnowPerson. So another one of the functions, and for those of you that are touch typers, you'll appreciate the fact that the 3 most common tools that we're going to be using in modeling, scaling, rotating, and moving, are on 3 keys that you're already used to having your hands on. W, E, and R. In other words, we're going to be using the home row. And so that was W for move. I'm going to touch E and show you that E is actually for rotation. Rotating a round object is not really going to make it look much different. So I'm going to move on to R for scale. And there's a very important thing you may have noticed when I was touching on just one versus on all more than one. And there's a special way to make sure all three are being scaled at the same time. Actually, more than one way. If I click right in the middle, there's a yellow highlight that indicates I'm going to scale all three at the same time. If I get off on one of these, I could scale it in a different way and make it an egg shape, or I could distort it so that it looks odd. Similar to, looks like a giant Mentos on its side now. Similar to Mudbox, in the upper right-hand corner, we've got a control box so we can rotate our viewport around if we wanted to. I'm going to undo the last two changes because I was just playing around to show you that you can scale something. Now we're going to use a combination of moving and scaling plus a really cool feature. You can change the purpose of a button by using another button. For example, when we use touch C on the keyboard normally, it types the number C, but Control C makes it a copy. The way that you make a copy in 3ds Max easily is you use the Move tool. Does anyone remember what tool do you touch? Yes, thank you guys for helping each other out on getting Classic going. So W is the Move tool. And if I have an object selected, I can move things around, but just like Control C changes it to copy, if you hold down the Shift key, so Shift plus drag is going to let us start to make a copy. And when I let go, it lets me name the object and decide if it's a copy, instance, or reference. We'll talk about that tomorrow. Right now, we're going to use a copy, and it's SnowPerson. We're going to call this what? Body or middle, whatever you want to choose. We have a base, a body, and a head. So I'm just going to call this body. Now, right now, they're the same size, which is less than ideal for a SnowPerson structure. So with the body selected, I can change the size of it by using that scaling option. R is scaling. And I'm going to click in the middle and drag down. And now what I've done is I've made a smaller version of the first sphere. So I've got a BB-8 looking device almost. I mean, these are overlapping more than BB-8. But I've got a base and a body. I've got two spheres that have been created in 3ds Max. I'm going to go back to the Move tool again, and I'm going to be careful to only click on blue when I make these, because if I click off on more than one color, I'm going to put that third copy off at some weird angle. I'm going to hold Shift again, and as I drag up, the body has now got a version the same size as the top, and I let go of the mouse, I let go of the Shift button, and this is going to be SnowPerson head. So I'm going to name that while I'm thinking about it. So with SnowPerson head selected, I'm going to touch R to go back into scaling, and I'm going to make the head smaller. That's the basic process you're going to use today. You're going to build a base, a middle, and a head. And then you're going to continue to make smaller spheres and put a couple eyes on there and a mouth. And that's pretty much what I want you to do, is demonstrate to me that you can create a SnowPerson in 3D space using 3ds Max. And at whatever point you decide to stop, you want to save your work. And let me show you how to do that while you're remoted in. So let's click on the word File up at the top where we did New. And this time we're going to say Save. You'll notice Control S is a shortcut. That's common across many tools as well. The place to save your work must be on the H drive. H as in home or hot dog. And so I'm going to type in the letter H, full colon, a backslash. And I'm going to say SnowPerson _ session 1 demo. Short, meaningful name. And when I click on save, by saving it on the H drive, if tomorrow you're on a different machine, you can open it up off of the H drive. It'll still be there. If you make a mistake and save it on the C drive and somebody else is connected, you can't get to that file. So that's problematic. So please save your work on the H drive. I'm going to switch for a minute from this view to show you what I'm expecting you to turn on. I'm going to pause the demo for a minute. So this is a good point for me to check and see how people are doing. So I'm going to switch over. If there's anything I need to highlight for the demo, I'll come back, but work on getting 3 spheres stacked, larger to smaller, in the general format of a SnowPerson, and I'll come back to that recording demo in a minute here. So I'm seeing some great questions here in the chat, but I want to be aware of the time. You're getting close to where we should probably have people turn in what they have with a comment that says, "This is as far as I got." We will pick up here tomorrow. If you're not able to remote in, that's a problem. Give me your comment that says I'm not able to remote in. If you joined us a little bit later, you're welcome to continue to use the lab, but I just want to respect people who have got another class to get to, because I'm scheduled to go till around 10. Ideally, what you're going to have, in a perfect world, if you were here, we probably would have gotten a little bit further. I would like to see a scene that shows a SnowPerson with labeled parts. So I know you guys have been on task. I know connectivity is an issue. The YouTube videos are something you could use instead, and you could repeat the 1-minute videos. When you're done, kindly make sure you close all of your apps and log off of the machine. I know you've noticed third session has not been practicing that very well. I'm not looking for artistic examples here at all. I'm just looking for an attempt, and it's also proof of concept for connecting. Every time we start a new tool in the lab, it'll get a little bit easier. We are going to do at least one more tool before the Unreal Engine. We're going to use Crazy Bump in the lab, which will help us to do some really cool materials and textures. But for someone who's never been in 3D space before, I've seen some impressive things out there. And there is a lot of things. Yes, you can mirror the eye using a symmetry modifier, but we're not going to worry about that. The copy button, as somebody highlighted, is you can right-click and duplicate. And we'll talk about clones and copies and instances. And yeah, we'll talk about that tomorrow when we'll do a little activity with some taffy arches. Okay. But in respect to the time commitment, we are in lab time. I also have office time, so if someone has a question, let me know. Otherwise, I'm going to be online if you need. Yes, definitely save to the H drive. Yep. And then if you get a different machine tomorrow, you'll find your work. So I'm going to type some of this into public chat. And you do not need to get off. I just want to let you know that if people have other things they need to go to, they can go to them. But before you leave for the day, make sure you put in a comment on how far you got. Either here's how far I got, here's an image of it. I couldn't even connect to the lab. Whatever's going on, give me a comment, please. I'm staying online. Just want to make sure I respect your time.